it's pretty surreal to see the life leave his body. I mean, it was hard to tell, or you would think it would be since he was already a vegetable and wasn't struggling with the pillow over his face, but you could tell. You can tell when somebody... Oh, anyway, are we live?
We are.
Oh,
We're on.
Hey.
Check
Hey,
it
welcome.
out.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while, although, if you listen to the podcast, it's been even longer than that because we haven't uploaded them in a month, even though we've been recording them because somebody has been slacking.
You can find them on YouTube.
You can find them on YouTube, but not on the podcast.
Yeah.
The only thing that's been making us money so far.
Technically. So far.
Made us 30 cents.
We'll get there.
Anyway, fucking
But yeah.
good news.
What's up?
Really good news, actually. Joe Biden, 13-point drop in the most recent poll into third place.
I did see that.
Yeah.
He's losing a lot of ground.
Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders
Yeah,
tied for
that's what I'm
first with 20%.
I seen Bernie made a lot of... he gained a lot of ground, I think, in New Hampshire, which is like one of the big ones. Thank God.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd be okay with either of them. So I'm not like super bummed out that Elizabeth Warren's tied because, she's fine. I still hope that it's Bernie, but
I still have...
good news that Joe Biden is out, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I still have mixed reservations about Warren. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about her. I just get like this weird feeling that she's not going to live up to the hype. I don't know. It might be unfounded, but that's kind of the way I feel when I think about Elizabeth Warren. I like her, but I just have these like feelings that I can't shake.
She's like disingenuous. I mean,
I wouldn't say disingenuous, but like she seems like she'd be willing to take unnecessary concessions to get things accomplished, which is, I mean, that's politics in a nutshell.
mm-hmm.
But like, I think that was a very valid complaint of like Barack Obama, for instance.
Yeah.
He made a lot of concessions to make things happen.
God, it's funny because most like leftists have no illusions about like Obama's presidency and how it was largely like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But like Republicans fucking hate him when he sided with them at every turn that he could.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Like, oh my God. Like, okay. So, generally, as a leftist,
Mm-hmm.
I think voting is a human right. I think that everyone should be allowed to vote.
Yeah.
But like, let's be fucking honest here. If old people didn't vote, the world would be so much of a better place. This is kind of personal right now, just because I'm following like a local Facebook group, like for the hometown, right?
Right.
And all it is just dumb stuff, dude. Like old people, and there are exceptions. Every once in a while, you'll get a Bernie Sanders who, by some miracle, managed to stay sharp his whole life. But they are information illiterate.
Yeah.
They are technologically illiterate.
Right.
They do not fact check anything. I saw a study saying that boomers are 7 times more likely to share fake news. They don't. If I see another picture of AOC with some words that some nonsense that she never said, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
They've convinced an entire generation that not only was like gerrymandering okay, like, I think the argument said that you could say that they stole effectively an entire wave of elections.
Yeah.
And they did it in the name of we're smarter than the rest.
Yeah.
So what they've done is convinced an entire group of people, however many people vote for them constantly, that it's smart to vote against your best interests.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, is that old folks are constantly voting for people who want to cut their benefits.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
They've had this argument, like Social Security is a big one I always use when I talk to older folk, because they're always like, they use the Social Security racks up the deficit argument, which is, I mean, ignoring the deficit.
It's separate.
Yeah, it's yeah. And
It's
we've
not,
known this. Even Ronald Reagan didn't stoop down to saying it was part of it. Like there's a famous clip with him and Mitch McConnell arguing on TV where he's like explains that Social Security doesn't rack up the deficit. But then those are the go-to things, Social Security, Medicare, and all that stuff, the so-called quote entitlements, like that's always the first thing on the chopping block. And even the president says if he wins in 2020, he flat out said it the other day. He's like, I'm going to cut Social Security, Medicare, period.
No, and that's the thing. Ronald Reagan started this trend to the right that has led to this fucking hellscape that we live in today. And yet even he is better on issues. Like I think he's the devil, but he's better on issues than modern conservatives are. Mm-hmm. Like they've gone so fucking far right.
Yeah. And that's where maybe that's where some of like the Warren concession thing that I have an issue with comes from, because it's kind of like, it seems like all too long that she'll make these compromises that won't do anything that needs to be done in the name of getting things accomplished, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, by doing so, nothing will get accomplished.
And that's honestly, even were like Bernie to get in, a lot of things aren't going to get accomplished, because the fact of the matter is that there's such a divide within the Democratic Party that you have like corporate Democrats that are going to side with Republicans over actual leftist policies. It's and I just wish that there was another party that was actually embodied the values that I hold. You know, like I'm sick that I have to settle for Democrats just because they're marginally better than Republicans. Yeah. Now the new Justice Democrats like AOC and the
progressive wing, so to speak,
they're better. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not as far left as I'd hope, but that's fine. I have like my ideals, but I also have like what's realistic. Mm-hmm. But like, I honestly think that somebody like Nancy Pelosi would side with Republicans over actual left-leaning Democrats.
Oh, I think so too.
And that's another thing that's crazy, is that I just saw like a post where they had a picture of Nancy Pelosi and AOC next to each other, and somebody like, and the title was like, "Socialists come in all shapes and sizes, from old prunes to dumb as plums." Mm-hmm. And it was like, the fucking gall, dude. The gall to call Nancy Pelosi a socialist. Yeah. Like, boomers don't know what words mean, and they call millennials stupid. It's progression. It's projection to a degree that I've never seen, man. Like, they are so dumb. They are so dumb. Like, and I know that it might not be like cool to say that a whole group of people is dumb, but they are dumb. They are stupid.
Objectively.
They will just believe anything that reinforces their view. They think that AOC is like a fucking idiot. Okay, she misspoke, like legitimately misspoke, maybe once or twice. You know who actually verifiably on camera says stupid shit all the fucking time? Donald Trump. All the fucking time says dumb shit, but they think he's like a fucking genius. Meanwhile, AOC
he's the second coming, remember? He said it the other day.
He thinks he's the second coming. Did you just see that video that came out where they asked him like his favorite Bible verse? And he just was like, I can't. He couldn't name. He couldn't say a single Bible verse. Yet this is the guy that has 80% of the evangelical vote. Mm-hmm. I'm tired. And you know what the fucking worst part of it is? You know what the worst part of it is? That they're gonna die. They're gonna die thinking that they were right. They're gonna die without having to face the consequences of their actions. I want every modern science to work on keeping them alive so that they can suffer through the fucking hellscape that they created
for us,
for the world, for the planet. That's the thing, man.
And that's the world entirely why, like, I always, like, I'm a big anti-ager, and I think the government should put a ton of money into anti-aging research, because, like,
but that's the thing. It's not going to fucking add 10 more years into their 20s. They're still going to be old relics of the past who come from a time where there was no internet. So all they had was a handful of people that controlled all of the media that they consumed and were able to shape the narrative however they wanted. Right. And they grew up believing this fake worldview, and nothing's going to change it. They only listen to things that reinforce it. And they don't fact check shit. And then anytime you try to get them to fact check something or you post something, everything except things that agree with them are fake news. Everything. Mm-hmm. You could literally have numbers right in front of their fucking face.
Oh yeah,
they'll say it's fake news.
Here's an excellent example. Sorry not to cut you off, but it's a really good example that I think will reinforce the point you're getting at. There's a lady I enjoy talking to every day, and I wouldn't say she leans left, but we have good conversations. But one thing kind of struck me the other day. We were having a conversation about climate change, right? There was that article that was in Time magazine like a month ago where they talked about how it's been the hottest years on record, 10 years in a row. Every year it's subsequently hotter.
Yeah.
And then she asked me, she's like, well, how do they know? And I was like, well, they measure it. She's like, well, how do we know that we had like the hottest, what month are we in August? The hottest July ever. And I was like, because we measure it worldwide.
Yeah.
We have satellite data that shows that. And she's like, well, how come it's 70 something outside and it's August? And I was like, because a cold front moved in that was pushed out, and I was like, I mean, there are ways to explain it. And I was like, here's what you need to know. It's 95 degrees in Anchorage.
Yeah. There's a difference between weather and climate.
Yeah.
It gets
they're
cold
not the
sometimes.
same.
It gets fucking cold
I had
sometimes.
a friend a long time ago who's a massive hardcore libertarian. And they're always the funnest people to talk to because they have like, I don't even know how to describe it, but they're always really fun to talk to. Anywho, we talked
because they have a worldview that's based on nothing.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good way to put it.
If you
So-
if you deregulated everything, people would just do the right thing.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
like, you look at fucking history, and that's never been the case. That's never been the case.
Never been the case.
Not once.
You want to talk about systems not working? That's it right there.
How about
So-
you look at fucking feudalism? That's a libertarian utopia for you.
Yeah, that's what you go in.
You would have fucking private militaries doing land grabs against each other. All the wealthy nobles would just be fucking paying for their own private militaries and attacking each other for fucking resources, cutting down national forests to fucking build oil pipelines through it. The shit that's going on in the fucking Amazon right now, that would be fucking everywhere. We've already deforested most of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And then most deforestation in the Amazon is done for room for agriculture anyway. So it's just, this is what happens. If there are no regulations, then there would just be nothing, because nothing would stop them from doing
Yeah.
it. You don't think that they would do it? They don't give a fuck, dude. They don't.
Ain't nobody care.
They don't, because
Just
they're
look at the-
going to be fine.
Just look at the terrible things that any company has done in the history of the United States. I mean, putting 5 and 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds to work for 14 hours a day in a coal mine. Like, you really think people care?
Yeah, that's the thing. That would happen if you got rid of all business regulations.
100%.
It would go back to the Industrial Revolution, where you had fucking children losing their fingers in factories, getting paid pennies on the dollar. You would have the reason that these companies outsource these manufacturing jobs to countries that don't have labor laws is so that they can do that. So that they
Absolutely.
can effectively have slavery. Oh, it's not slavery because they make 10 cents an hour. It's still fucking slavery. And that's what they would love to
It's
do
a different
here.
kind of
This idea-
economical slavery.
yeah,
You
this-
keep them down because you're feeding them just a little bit, but it's just enough
yeah,
that they can't get
if
ahead.
if you can pay if you are getting paid only enough to live, to survive, then that's just slavery, because food and shelter were provided to fucking slaves.
Yeah.
If you pay people just enough to do that,
Yeah,
then
there's
what the fuck's the difference? If you
There was an activist in Colorado who used a quote a long time ago. I heard her on a podcast. I can't remember her name, so I apologize. But she basically worded it like this, and it wasn't like something I didn't know, but I guess to hear it so clear kind of like made something click in my head. But she said, there's never been a time in this country where slavery did not exist. And that's the new kind, like just new economic slavery. You have your slave labor via the prisons, like... even one of our presidential candidates kept people in jail for longer so they could exploit the labor. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think that these people won't do it, like, you're crazy.
yeah, it's going on with the migrant detention centers too.
Oh, yeah,
there's
that's a big
there's an ongoing lawsuit about forced labor done to migrants.
Yeah.
If,
There's even a labor law written into I think it's the Farm Bill. It might be the Wage Bill. I'm not 100%, but it basically says that it's okay to pay farms. It is okay to, like, because of the way the law is written, they can hire illegal immigrants or migrants, however you want to call it. And I keep saying that because I read too much news, but migrants, you're allowed to hire migrant workers and pay them less than minimum.
yeah.
And you can also do it to people who aren't migrants. You can pay anybody less than minimum because it's written in the law so they can exploit cheap labor.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I come from a city in California that's biggest export is strawberries, and there's tons of migrant workers there. And the thing is that this idea that illegal immigration is somehow like stealing jobs or destroying the economy, like it's bullshit. They have the least amount of power. They are some of the most exploited people. Cancer rates are huge among migrant workers because they just dump pesticides on them because they don't have any labor rights, which is exactly what the fuck conservatives would want to do to everybody.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
eliminate all labor rights. There's a
Well, I
battery
mean-
factory here. Do you think that they would give a fuck about lead poisoning if they didn't have OSHA to deal with. If they had no
Exactly.
regulation, they wouldn't give a fuck if people got lead poisoning by the time they're 50. It'd be better for them if they died without having to pay them out retirement.
Oh, yeah, when I was
that
a
would be
kid.
a boon to them.
There was a kid when I was a kid, when I was like 8, 9, 10. I remember talking to my sister once, and she told me about a news article that had come out, and this was probably 20 years ago. And it basically worded it out like that. It's like any company wants you to die before you can claim benefits. Like,
Yeah.
and like this isn't new stuff. Like, these are, I think you said it best a couple podcasts ago, where you were like, these problems are just ongoing problems that have never been solved and just keep getting worse.
No, that's the thing, is that the system is not broken. The system is working exactly the way that it's designed.
See, I said that out on the campaign trail a while back, and people looked at me like I was crazy. I said that word for word. I
Yeah.
said, if you guys think that the system is broken, you are misinformed, because it's working entirely as intended.
Yeah.
Because we have the capacity to make those changes and make it happen and make it work, but we don't, because we put the wrong people in and we let them take control of things they should have never had control over. And that's why you got coal miners who have been sitting on railroad tracks for 3 weeks fighting for better rights,
Yeah.
because their senator does not care.
Well, you have people who say, like, you know, there's a land opportunity, anybody can do anything that they want, and that's, you look at the fucking numbers and that's not true. 60% of all wealth is inherited. More than half of people in the Fortune 500's top earners were born in upper class.
I had a good
If
argument.
you were born
Sorry,
into
go ahead.
poverty, there is less than 1% chance that you can become one of the Fortune 500's top owners. That's not a coincidence. Like, it's not like, wow, this is weird that happened. No, it is. It was made to be like that.
Oh yeah. Well, look at, I mean, was it Don Jr.? How much did his degree cost?
Yeah.
From Harvard.
And that's another thing too, is that because
There was the I mean, that's just it. It's the scandal, you know. Oh yeah, so I'm sorry, what I was going to bring up earlier was I had an argument with a guy about the inheritance tax. The estate tax, what they call it. If you know, if
Yeah.
you're on the right, it's the death tax. And I was talking to a store owner about it, and he was like, "Well, I just don't think I should have to pay a tax when I leave stuff behind to my kids." And I was like, "You are aware that like that doesn't kick in until you own over $1 million in assets, right?"
yeah.
And he's like, "Is it that high?" And I was like, "Do you own over $1 million?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "So why do they get a head start on nothing?"
Yeah, that's the way that they have shaped the narrative, is that somehow it will be your taxes that are going to be, you got people who make fucking $50,000 a year who are fighting tooth and nail for the rights of billionaires. Because
Yeah.
they think that it's somehow, I'm going to pay more tax. Like, you're not. You're just not. We are just
Yeah.
asking for the top earners to pay their fair share of taxes.
If you were, I mean, you just got to think, if you were taxed fairly, if they added more brackets, which is the biggest thing about tax fairness, mind you, the state we live in, one of the first states ever to incorporate progressive tax brackets, more brackets is what we need, and spread it out amongst the earners. I mean,
Yeah, that's the thing, is that they don't understand a progressive tax bracket.
No,
they don't
they-
get it. They think
well, it's
that
confusing.
if someone says, taxes on the top are going to be, 60%, 70%, they think that means that everyone's taxes are going to be at a flat rate of 70%, which is fucking nonsense, but it's what they believe with their whole hearts. I was just talking to a guy who is an electrician, which is a good job.
absolutely.
Good job. You get, paid pretty decent. Like, but he was talking about, like, I don't want to be taxed so much that I can't afford to survive. Meanwhile, I'm like, paying for people who don't want to work. And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
One, we give way more in corporate subsidies than we do in welfare
Absolutely.
by far.
Oh yeah.
So-
What is the average food tax? Food stamps tax or spending in the food farm bill? Isn't it like only like 10 billion or something like that?
Yeah.
And we gave back 1.5 trillion.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're not like struggling companies. Huge portions are given out to oil subsidies,
Oh,
one of
yeah.
the most profitable fucking industries. So no, your taxes are not going to be going to some fucking, honestly, if you thought that fucking people below the poverty line were living so high on the fucking hog, why do you think anyone would try to succeed? You think that they're fucking living their best fucking lives
Right.
because they get $200 a month of food stamps?
Oh,
You
yeah.
think that means that they're fucking balling? Like, what are you talking about? I
Yeah,
don't.
exactly. Yeah, it's just, it's just they just sell it so well because they don't get it. Like a progressive income tax structure is better for the lower class because you might, even if you pay just a little bit more, you're getting so much back out of it. Like what people don't understand is that sales taxes and property taxes are inherently regressive against the lower classes. Like if you're a working class person and you own a house, property tax raises can price you out of your home. A lot of people don't think about that because I know guys who lived out in the western part of the state who were priced out of their homes every single year. Their property tax went up. And when your mortgage is escrowed, that's worked back into your bill. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you just got to think about this kind of things. Like these are the things that hurt the most.
Yeah.
So when you're given a billion, first of all, let's start with that. Like $1 billion is so much money. Like $1 billion is more money than you can, like there's no way you could spend $1 billion in your life. It would be almost impossible. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be here like, oh, you could go around and buy like 30 helicopters. It's like, no, that's silly. Because why would you do that? But
yeah,
it's just so much money. Like you could tax them at 50%. And that person, if they make $1 billion a year, they're going to have 500 million left over. Who cares? They're not hurting.
No.
And with a new billionaire added, like I think was the current statistic, like 1 billionaire a week or something like that.
I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah, it might be outdated data, but
yeah,
it baffles me that more people don't care. And it's not like one of the things that always gets me too is like it's not like I'm not about wealth redistribution. You know what I'm saying? I'm about fair share. Like don't make it. Well, you know what I mean. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's a belief you want to hold, that's cool. But, I don't care that somebody becomes a millionaire. I don't. But what I do care is that you have a company worth, almost $1 trillion or however much Amazon is worth, for instance, and they don't pay anything.
No, I do have a problem with people making inordinate amounts of money and then not paying anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It
has nothing to do with wealth redistribution. Because when I hear
reap the benefits of a modern society and then just pretend that you didn't and just be like, this is all mine. I earned it fair and square. Didn't rely on the fucking internet. I didn't rely on roads. I didn't rely on public education. I just willed this money into existence because I fucking wanted it. Like I didn't rely on
bought
my
out the
bottom
politicians.
Level.
Yeah.
I didn't buy it out of my politicians. I didn't, make this off the backs of my bottom level employees who make 1/300th what I make.
1/3000th.
1/3000th. In some cases.
Yeah. Like there was a hearing not too long ago. This is a good example. I don't remember the congresswoman, but she kind of got really big on the internet for a little bit because she kind of grilled this one CEO. And he's like, well, basically the answer summed up was, you know what I'm talking about, where he's like, well, we've always been more concerned about the shareholders, but maybe we need to start worrying about our workers. And like she got like standing ovation. Everybody's like, yeah, you put him on the spot. It's like he's just telling you that. He doesn't care.
No.
They're not going to change anything.
No.
They wouldn't fight unions so hard if they actually cared.
They wouldn't be fucking paying so much to lobby politicians if they cared. That's the thing is like if we got rid of all of their tax, if we lived in the laissez-faire capitalist society that the libertarians want so badly, do you think like people like their argument is always like charity, let people voluntarily give what they want instead of taking it with taxes, taking it at gunpoint with taxes. And it's like, you know what? Nobody would fucking do it. The only time the wealthy actually give to charities is so they can write it off as a tax break. They don't, and then sometimes they donate it to their own foundations, which they only have to pay they only have to actually use 5% of that money to do what the charity is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So they can really just move their money into their foundation and then use their foundation as their fucking bank.
That's why they put out like a list every year of like the 10 worst charities for like actually putting their money forward.
Yeah.
Like I think the top 10 charities in the US or something like that only use like 4 or 5 to 3% of the money to actually towards the cause, they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like, the rest is admin.
That's all that they're legally obligated to.
Right.
So no, they wouldn't. And do you think like they would fund your kid's school if they didn't have to?
Oh no.
No, because they're going to send their fucking kid to some expensive private school.
Oh, they're going to buy him a degree.
Your kid can grow up uneducated as fuck. They don't give a shit. They don't. They don't care about you. And yet you guys are fighting tooth and nail for them. Like, I don't fucking understand these class traders, man. I don't get it. Like that's what they are.
They've just this idea has been sold to them as such a simple concept.
Yeah.
See, it's easy to say you like low taxes, right? Like everybody's gonna say yes. I like low taxes. However, I'm not irresponsible enough to say I should have a 0% tax rate.
Yeah,
it's ideal, but it's not. It's just not right.
It's not. It's not fair. It's not feasible.
Yeah, not feasible either.
Nothing in human history has showed us that human nature is inherently like gonna just fucking donate all. Like I'm gonna fund things that don't immediately impact me and my immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are so short-sighted that they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
They don't. That's the thing about what they're doing now by like stagnating wages and they are hurting themselves in the long run, but they don't care. They're so short-sighted because you realize that if people had more disposable income, then they would buy more things, which would fund more businesses, which would actually help them in the long run.
Yeah,
It would especially help small businesses like mom and pop shops and shit.
Yeah, they
because
say
they cost more than going to a place like Walmart or Amazon. So if somebody is living check to check, then yeah, they're not going to spend money at these specialty stores that cost a little bit more. They're going to buy their stuff from Walmart, which is going to make Walmart more money and make smaller businesses harder to compete.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you have completely unregulated capitalism. You just have massive monopolies that control everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And
spending accounts for a significant portion of the economy. It's not all of it, I think Bernie's talked a lot about Wall Street trades and stuff that are kind of happen behind the scenes that nobody tells. Like they shift money around to prevent it from being recorded and stuff like that. It just, it's so tough and aggravating. Because like I said, it's so easy to sell it, but these situations are so complicated. Like nobody has the time to really sit down and listen. It's like I had a conversation with a guy hearkening back to our earlier bit about like hiring migrant workers, and he made the claim to, all these migrants coming over taking jobs. And I was like, we have a 3.4 unemployment percent rate. Like, do you know the lowest it's ever been? And he's like, no. I was like, it's 3.2. And that was like during the height of like post-war where everybody was back to work. I was like, so your argument is just invalid by data. Yeah. And he's like, well, all those are filled jobs by migrants. I was like, they're not counted.
Yeah. And also, before Trump even got elected, I don't know what the data is now, but immigration from Mexico was below net zero. It wasn't a crisis the way that they were they were phrasing it. It was not even...
No, even South Park did an episode on it, like, of people leaving. I mean...
Yeah, so it's honestly, it's all bullshit. All of it is a smokescreen. Every last bit of it. It's...
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's ridiculous is what it is, but they're just so much better at selling it because unfortunately, like kind of like I said, like our issue is it takes time to explain it and people just don't care.
Well, people, and that's the thing is that like, I was in a discussion with my stepdad, about some of these things. And he said that I was brainwashed. Right. And it's like, well, what's more likely that I'm brainwashed or that you who has lived in this society and has been told that this is how it's supposed to be since you were a child is actually the one who's been indoctrinated.
Right.
We even have people who are, liberals who still will defend capitalism. Okay. And I guess maybe that's you too, but, I had posted something about, the Amazon forest burning down and how that is, directly tied to capitalism. And you had people defending it like, no, it's not. Capitalism is fine. That's not capitalism. And it's absolutely capitalism. If there wasn't a profit motive to do it, then it wouldn't be happening. These are intentional fires that are set up for the sole purpose of making money, for using this land for agriculture.
Yeah.
That is the point. And if there wasn't a huge profit motive, then it wouldn't be happening. That is absolutely, undeniably capitalism. You know what I'm saying?
See, that's where I think, and this is my ideal in that regard. That's why I always say, like, I think it's the government's job to step in and say, hey, none of this isn't happening. But when it's being bought out, it's like, I guess I don't think we've ever lived in a position to see what the government can do when it's allowed to step in and stop unchecked.
So I would be okay with, social democracy. I would be okay with strong regulations on capitalism, with a transparent government,
Transparency is a big one.
Yeah. Where, we actually had a government that stood up for the people. But all that would happen is that it would be okay for a few years until it just happened again.
Yeah, until they sell it better.
It is inevitable. Crony capitalism is inevitable. There's no way for capitalism not to devolve into that. We tried making a move towards social democracy with FDR, and it only took a couple decades for it to revert back to crony capitalism.
What is it? They talk about the beginning of that, like Richard Nixon, being the first president to undo our moves towards the actual what did LBJ call it, the Golden Society or whatever.
Yeah,
and Nixon being the first one to undo it.
Yeah.
And it was downhill from there.
Nixon started it, and then Reagan finished it.
Yeah.
And then since then, and even fucking Democrats like Bill Clinton getting rid of Glass-Steagall, like, yes, like both sides are to blame now. Politics has moved so far to the right that it's and this is just what happens when you leave capitalism. It will grow into this because people will always be looking to
get ahead.
To get ahead. And as soon as they have a little bit of money, then they use that to fund campaigns.
Somebody will. This is why I'm a big fan of universal income. But
well, because the thing is that automation should be a good thing.
Yeah,
it should absolutely.
Yeah,
be,
the idea is that you automate away the jobs that just don't need anybody.
That are hard, that are physically taxing, that are menial, that people don't want to do. That should be a good thing.
Yeah,
but it's not, because we have no. If the rich fucking people on top had no reason to pay the poor money, then they won't.
Right.
That's the fear, is that it's going to leave all these people, in the dust, and that's what's going to happen. But it shouldn't be that way.
Right. It's one of those things.
No, dude. I feel like we are just shouting into the void. It's too. It might be too late.
It very well could be. I mean, they say like a good example, like we were talking about the Amazon earlier. They say like if 2/5 of it are gone, like that's the damage, a point of no return. Like we won't be able to undo that damage in our lifetime or something like that.
Yeah.
And the original report that came out was like, 1/5 is gone. Everybody's like, okay, if we can, get ahead of this, we're good to go. But then like a few more scientists did some more research, and they're like, no, it's actually like 3/5. Yeah. Like it's way worse than it appears.
Yeah. But the thing is that when agriculture becomes scarce,
yeah,
which we've talked about it a few times, the biggest aquifer
in
the Midwest drying out. It's projected to cause more than like $30 billion of crop loss. Yeah. Well, when that happens, what happens to food? It becomes way more expensive.
Right.
Well, we've already talked about how some people have more money than they can feasibly spend. It's not going to affect them at all.
No.
If steak goes from being, $10 a pound to $1,000 a pound, they can still afford it. They're going to be okay. But fucking some guy who doesn't even make $1,000 in 2 weeks can't eat anymore.
Yeah, it feeds back into itself. I think we've talked about it before, like the access to poor nutrition leads to poor health. It leads to increased healthcare costs and so forth. It's like a never-ending cycle. But I also think that there's like this is going to go a little off the fringe here, but I think it's interesting. I think it's also how we get the private corporate armies that you kind of referenced earlier.
Yeah.
Because when it comes down to it, somebody is going to say, I have all this stuff. It's going to kind of divert back to its own kind of feudalism.
Yeah.
Bezos is going to be like, I need to protect my empire. And he hires his own personal army because he can afford it. And then it happens over and over and over again. And then it becomes corporate. I mean, to me, real corporate powers vying for control.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that.
Especially when I think his heir, who's the one with Blackwater, or the formerly Blackwater in Trump's family, Kushner?
I don't know.
Eric Prince?
I don't know.
One of them he's currently the head of Blackwater or whatever. I don't know.
It's definitely not Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner is kind of a soft guy.
Yeah, he's
certainly-
the Middle East guy, or
He's
like supposed to be in
certainly
charge.
not,
I don't remember.
Yeah, he's fucking what is the foreign embassy
Something like that.
ambassador or
Yeah.
something for no reason
Yeah.
other than that he's banging
He's
Trump's dream girl.
He's the meet the he's the meet the Saudis with information guy.
Yeah, he's the guy who was sharing fucking
But,
classified shit through WhatsApp.
It might be Prince.
This is,
I don't remember.
how
It
are
doesn't.
you so fucking dumb? Using WhatsApp, whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever.
He's
It's-
Snapchatting. He's like
Snapchatting
he's
fucking
Instagramming. He's like
classified
he's like
documents.
feeling cute, planning on leaks tonight.
Yeah, he's in the fucking DMs of
Might
some
delete later.
Saudi prince, like whatever. They're
But anywho, so I brought the guy up anyways, whichever one it is, I don't know. I don't really care. But he was in an article a while back that kind of went under the radar, but more people should have really been kind of alarmed by it, because the basis of it was he runs a private army and the government should privatize their army.
yeah. Well, they would love that,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
but that's the thing, is that the more regulations you get rid of, the more it goes into feudalism.
Yeah.
Like, if there were no government regulatory bodies to actually verify that anybody privately owned anything, see, this is why anarcho-capitalism isn't a thing. If you didn't have the state to step in and actually verify that you own something, then you couldn't fucking own it unless you physically defended it by force. Of course, libertarians will always talk about the non-aggression pact, but look at human history. That's never been the case. If you claimed to own land,
Yeah.
but had no way to prove it, then somebody who had more than you could just take it.
It's
could
even
just physically
something-
fucking could just kick you out of it.
It's even something simpler than that. How do you prove who you are? Like, we have, realistically, we have what? How many ways to identify ourselves and actually say who we are? Because remember, this goes to ICE. You know, they locked up a 10-year-old because they didn't match their passport photo. Their passport, the most secure document you can get in this country, like the universal ID.
By the way, I've never had a passport.
Me neither. I need one. I want to get one. But it's legitimately the best ID you can have. Like, it's the hardest to get. Like, they threaten your citizenship if you mess up the application. Like, the passport is the best ID you can have. It's universal. Like, it's you. But like, otherwise, how do you prove it's you? Like, how do I know who I am? How do you know who you are?
That's the thing, is that they don't
What if they don't care?
care.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that they would just have serfs. They would, if they had it their way, then they would just own all of the means of production and just have workers in there working their entire lives. No more, say goodbye to 8-hour workdays, say goodbye to overtime, say goodbye to vacation, say goodbye to workplace safety regulations, say goodbye to like being able to get compensated if you're injured on the job. All that stuff would be gone. You would just be serfs and you would die at 50.
By the way,
That's what they want. And if you don't think that they want that, you're not paying attention. That's what they want. That's what they're doing in other countries. Like, when you see some shit that says made in fucking Taiwan, that's what they're doing. The Samsung factories in Asia have suicide nets on the bottom because the conditions are so bad that people throw themselves off the fucking roof. It's fucking slavery, and they would love to. That's the reason they do it over there, is because they can't do it here because there is regulation
And then when
that they want to get rid of.
and then when regulations come into play, they move on to the next country. That's why, like in the 90s, everything was made in Mexico. Well, Mexico kind of got up on it. Then it was made in China. Then it was made in Indonesia. Then made in Taiwan. Made in Korea. Then back to Indonesia. Like, made in Malaysia. All these different little places. They're just moving the stuff around.
And then we're having just this rise of these fucking fascist regimes that are coming on. Bolsonaro in Brazil, who's doing the fucking burning. And then you have fucking like Duarte in the Philippines, who's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I think the term is sycophant. Is that
like,
right?
Well, a sycophant's like an ass kisser.
Oh, is it? Oh.
He's more of just a fucking lunatic. He's a
He's
fascist
crazy
dictator
person.
who's
He's
literally
a certified
killing
crazy person.
people.
Yeah, you got the Italian guy and the Polish guy.
Yeah.
Even the UK with Bojo,
their new
Boris Johnson.
Yeah. Like, it's crazy because we take progress for granted. We think that it's always going to get better.
Yeah.
But it's the more you become lazy, the more you become disinterested in politics, the more you forget about what's going on, then it gets worse. These like Trump is bad, dude. Like that's the funny thing is that like people always go Orange Man bad, Orange Man. Orange Man fucking is bad.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
He's done
is that he's fucking bad. But and you know who actually like? First of all, they all say that people on the left are NPCs going Orange Man bad, Orange Man bad. But they're the ones who keep saying Orange Man bad.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are just repeating scripts. But also, do you know who the fuck talks like that? Fucking Trump talks like that.
Mm-hmm.
This thing bad, this thing good.
I'm the best.
I'm the best. Like, it's projection. I can't. I don't understand what's going on. They just have a different view of the world than I can't understand it.
Yeah, I can't either.
Like, and they also
Like,
think that he's like this fucking tough guy.
literally.
Like he's this strong, like he's a rich pampered boy his whole fucking life who's never once gotten his hands dirty. But they think that he's somehow the president of the working man. That he somehow like has anything in common with some fucking coal miner. Like he fucking doesn't. He doesn't give a shit about you. He doesn't give two fucks
He
about
doesn't. Have I talked about like the psychologist report on billionaires before on here?
you. No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, I read this cool article a long time ago. It was by like a psychologist or something like that, and it would take me a while to find it, and I don't even remember who wrote it, but I remember the gist of it. But basically, he talks about the psychological profiles of certain monetary classes, and he kind of broke down the working class, the middle class, and the millionaire class, and kind of talked about the different ways that they kind of think and operate and why the classes don't intermingle.
Mm-hmm.
And it does come down to like mental thought patterns because he also talked about billionaires because he had a billionaire client that he would give therapy for and stuff. And he talked like most billionaires have a complete dissociation with personal connections. Like their entire life becomes about managing their money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the thing about it is the things that come with being a billionaire, because it's so much money, is literally access to anybody in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't mean that like figuratively, like they could get their assistant and be like, I want to talk to the president of the United States. And like, they'll talk to the president within a day, like, because they're so influential. Because all that's left for a billionaire to buy is influence. Mm-hmm. There's literally nothing else they can't do.
Yeah. Well, they've done like, that's the thing is that I don't like to necessarily cite sort of like one-time studies, but they've done like studies about like the brain patterns of like conservative versus liberal like thought processes.
Oh yeah.
That conservatives have less empathy. You know.
Oh yeah.
Like
well, I mean, look at
they
that.
have trouble like maintaining eye contact. They have trouble of discerning people's like emotional cues, and that might be confirmation bias on my part of like, this is what I've always thought, and now somebody's coming out with a study saying it. But it's like,
see, I've always kinda,
I'd buy it because their actions show it. Like,
well, I mean, look at the article I brought up a while back, where it was conservatives will believe in climate change if told to them by a conservative leader, but if told to them by a Democrat or a liberal, they won't believe it and consider it fake news.
What's the thing?
With like a study sample of like 5,000 people.
There's no conservative that's saying
that. Exactly. So like, I lost my train of thought. Dang it! I had something else I was going to go on, but go on.
But it's like the climate change one is a weird one because I saw like a political cartoon, and most of them are fucking dumb, but there's one where it just had like a list of everything like cleaner air, cleaner water, jobs in new industries like renewable energy, and some guy in the audience goes, "What if it's all a hoax and they're just making the world a better place for no reason?" But it's like, yeah, what are you arguing against?
Yeah, what? Yeah.
Like,
oh, that's what I was going to bring up. I didn't get to it earlier because we got off on a small tangent. But so I had an argument with my libertarian friend. His name was Chuck. Was it? No.
That's a libertarian name if I ever heard one.
Exactly. Never heard of liberal Chuck. Anyways, Chuck Schumer. Never mind. No.
Chuck Schumer.
Conservative.
Yeah.
Anyways, so shout out Chuck Schumer. No, I'm kidding. So anyways, we were talking about Chuck Schumer, if you're out there, give us a call at thesoursource@gmail.com. So anyways, we were talking about climate change, and at the time the big news was that NASA determined that the Arctic ice was shrinking, the Antarctic ice. And he pulls up a study, and we were arguing about it, that showed there was more ice than there ever has been. And I was like, well, the problem with your study, my friend, is that you're talking about sea ice, and you're not wrong. There's more sea ice than there's ever been, but that's not the ice that we need. We need the land ice because the land ice doesn't melt in the summer. And I showed him like the counterpoint from NASA's website, and he got mad, and he's like, so what if the climate's changing? Like, it's not people doing it. And I was like, no, it is. It's 100% man-made. And even if it's not, the climate is still changing. Like, you can't deny that. And he's like, his immediate response was, well, then what are you saying? Like, are you saying we should control the climate? I'm saying the issue is the climate is changing. It's going to cause a lot of problems for us. And if we don't figure it out, we're going to have issues. It's not about controlling it. It's about the fact that we live in this damn climate.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that is 100% man-made. And you'll constantly see people that go, volcanoes spew more. They don't. They don't.
They just don't.
That's a made-up study. They factually don't. Like, but you can't, like, people just share fake news all the time.
Yeah, they do.
And it's just like, I read a headline. That's my worldview now. Never gonna fucking check back up on that again.
Never gonna check it.
Yeah, that's it now. Volcanoes produce. Well, this reinforces my worldview, so I'm just gonna live with that information.
I do love I love me some South Park. And did you see the newer episode where Man Bear Pig returns? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, the whole point of the episode, and this is a great one, is that it's an allegory for climate change. Yeah, everybody keeps denying him, and he's constantly killing more people. Yeah. And then there's one at the climax of the scene. The Man Bear Pig breaks into a restaurant and starts killing people, and they're focusing in on one family, and the dad of the family turns around and he's like, "Okay, Man Bear Pig is real now, Karen, but so what are we gonna do about it now? It's already too late." And it's like, that is 100% the idea. It's like, it's already ruined. What are we gonna do about it now?
Yeah.
And it's
that's the thing. There's prototype. There's like, not prototypes, but blueprints for like these giant like towers that look like air filters that actually are like designed to. But who's gonna fucking pay for them? There's no way to profit off of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no incentive to get it done.
Mind you, this is one of my more left ideals. Why do we pay utility companies outside of water for service? Like, why is that a for-profit industry?
Yeah, no, that's the thing too, is that there was, like, I actually am contracted out to the power company. There's like a merger going on with another power company. There's essentially a monopoly. Like,
they're government sponsored monopolies.
Yeah, it's like you don't really have a choice. Like, you can't really shop the market for different power companies. You have whatever power company is local to your region. It's like, that should be a public utility. Because the idea is that, like, it's not a necessity. Try surviving in the fucking modern world without electricity.
Try being in Florida where it's illegal to live off the grid.
Try,
That's true, by the way.
Even something like the internet should be a public utility by this point, because you can't even apply for jobs in person anymore. AT&T, like, you can't function without the internet.
No, you can't. AT&T dumped, I think if it wasn't Aurora, it might have been Boulder, might have been a smaller city in Colorado. They wanted to go 100% public co-op, which is great because a public co-op internet gives you the best speeds and it's the most reliable. AT&T or Comcast, one of the two, dumped like $100 million into the city advertising against it. Just that one city. Yeah. Like, and you have to remember, AT&T is the company that took $400 billion in taxes to build a fiber network. Yeah. And didn't.
Yeah, exactly. The all of the actual like infrastructure for the internet, a lot of it was government subsidized. Almost, I think maybe all of it was. Yeah. Right.
Well, what would happen is, like, a cable company would move into an area and they would say, "Hey, we operate in the area. If you give us exclusive rights, we'll lay the wire and do everything for you." Okay, that sounds relatively great, but there's no expiration on the deal. Mm-hmm. Like, there was a big fight between cable companies and satellite providers because satellite providers didn't need their lines.
Yeah.
So when you, like, if you want to go like a public co-op, you lay your own lines, but it's cheaper. Like, Google Fiber is a really good example. It's not public, but this is the closest example we got I can think of off the top of my head. So Google Fiber comes in and tells a city, "I'm going to lay a network." This was before Google got rid of its Don't Be Evil Act and its corporate law. But they would go into a city and they would lay their own fiber and give everybody access to it. and it was good value. I mean, you're talking 1 gig speed for cheaper than what cable could do it. And at the time, no other company could offer that kind of speed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you want that everywhere? But then Google took out Don't Be Evil from its laws, and then subsequently went to for profit. So,
yeah.
But that's the point, though. I mean, you got the cities who are trying to go public with their own co-ops, and these companies come in, they try to shut them down. Like, in Europe, I think you're allowed to choose your power provider. Like, if you want it to be all green, you can do that. You can choose an all green power provider. Like, they're required to compete for customers, and it keeps the prices down. Like, so the idea that we have any kind of corporate sponsored monopoly seems just outrageous to me.
Yeah, but that's the world.
Or government sponsored monopoly. Yeah.
That's just the world that we live in, though. When everything there are certain things that just shouldn't have a profit motive to them. You know?
Yeah, things that are, at the base, I think things that are universally considered to be like the marked minimum of survival.
Yeah. Video games, movies, these are things that can be privately funded. Sure.
PlayStation Network should be free. Go ahead.
Sure. But yeah, like necessities should not be privatized.
Mm-hmm.
Prisoners should not be privatized.
No.
Healthcare should not be privatized.
No.
Certain things just should not be fucking privatized. But like I feel like we're just fucking, I
think we're at such a,
might already be over.
It might be, but I think the optimist in me kind of even as an optimist, from an optimistic perspective, I really do feel like this election specifically will be the junction in human history. Like, it is this exact moment in time where the United States decides which direction our planet is going to go, because it's not in the argument that like, well, what, the other countries aren't going to jump on board and so forth and so forth. I don't care about that. My point is that we've always acted as the leader in certain things in times of crisis, and we can do it again, but the country has to decide to do it. I think
honestly, I thought last election was a crossroads that we fucking took the wrong path with, obviously. Even Hillary would have been the wrong path too. But yeah, this is an even more dire, pivotal moment in human history of like, and there's been a lot of them throughout history.
Yeah,
things that could have gone one way or the other.
Yeah.
Like what if the Axis powers won World War II? That's like something that could have happened.
I love alternate history scenarios. We should do a full one on that.
What if
scenarios?
Nikola Tesla like won against what's his name, Thomas Edison?
Yeah, because Tesla did have the idea that he wanted his power to be free.
Yeah, so those are kind of pivotal moments in human history. I think this is going to be one of them. I don't know if there's bouncing back from 8 years of Trump.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
I
think we're at the point. To me, I'm going to make a fighting analogy here. You know what a 1-2 is? A 1-2 is where you eat it's like a cross and then a jab, then a cross. Like you take one punch and it sets you up, but then you eat the more powerful shot. Yeah, 2-piece meal. We just ate the jab and we're still kind of reeling. Like we got to decide not to eat that cross. Like we got to step back, get out of range, and like really restart and start moving in a better direction.
See, the hope is that these are just the final throes of a dying ideology.
But
I don't think that it is. I think like who the fuck's after? Like what if the next guy is fucking crazier than Trump?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is the dying throes either, because you have, 54% of America voted for Hillary Clinton, and outside of the Electoral College and all that, any of that stuff doesn't matter. This is about numbers. That still means that what is it? What is left? 46.
Of course, this is people who actually vote.
Yeah, this is also true.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah, so. That's also true. That is also true. But still, that many million people still voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Like that's, so it's not, I don't think it's an ending ideology, because even me, like examining the elections from the outside, I was like, I told all my friends, I was like, Donald Trump's going to win. And all my friends like, no way. There's no way America's going to elect him. I was like, yeah, they are, because they have this idea in their head that they want something different. I was like, he's appealing to the sensibilities of everybody. Like, and I was like, and he's a full blown right winger. Like, he's lying through his teeth right now. I was like, his party hates him because he's running a left style campaign. Like, he's talking about free healthcare, or cheap healthcare, I should say. I was like, that's not what they want. They want to fix the Affordable Care Act, quote, because that's the easy sell. And I was like, he's going to win. And there's just no question about it. And then, election day happened and all my friends were like, wow, I can't believe it. And I was like, I've been telling you guys, like, this is not news. Like, the writing was on the wall from the get-go.
And the thing is that, like, it's not even just, like, fucking dumbass boomers. Like, it's a lot of them. But, Zoomers are, a lot of them are getting radicalized on, like, Reddit and 4chan to be... Like, so boomers are just fucking dumb.
Well, being anti-liberal is the new in. It's like,
that's the thing, is that you'll have like these,
the shut up hippie movements coming back,
especially like among like the gaming community and things like that. You had a guy like Destiny who was like deprogramming alt-righters, which is good because of the video game community. Because there was that Gamergate thing where like. It shifted the whole like mood around gaming culture,
right?
Where it became very anti-feminist, anti-SJW, and so you had a guy like Destiny coming in who is a liberal and was debating these like alt-righters and doing good work, but now he is debating fucking SJW, liberal feminists, like this and that, and so like even people who are self-described. And even someone like Joe Rogan, who is platforming a lot of these like right wing. That's the thing that if you are a competent speaker, you can make things sound good.
Right.
Human psychology is very flawed.
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro, if you put anything he says under a microscope, it's nonsense, but he says it with conviction, says it as though it's common sense that this is the truth. So people take it as that.
He's an interesting.
Like, we all know that the sky is orange. We all know that. So when you argue that it's not orange, then you're clearly like, and you start from a place of like, this is the truth. You have to defend that it's not.
Right.
If you can just speak properly, you can convince people of anything. And so you have a lot of these like young people who are becoming radicalized in these sort of dark corners of the internet,
Well, you had the Obama turned Trump voters too. Like these guys who felt like Obama didn't live up to their expectations, so they went the other way.
Yeah.
Then you have the uninformed who voted just because they wanted something quote different. I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier.
And also just that he had the most like media exposure,
absolutely.
Like by far. And I don't want to say that people are that dumb, but people are that dumb of just like hearing the name enough. Like, why was Biden leading the polls? Does anybody know what he was running on? Does anybody know anything about his platform? No, it's just because they knew who he was. It's just the name.
All I know is it's at joe30330.com.
And it's like, when fucking Finding Nemo came out, and like you hear it created like a crisis with clownfish, like they were overfishing them to the point of extinction because everyone wanted one as a pet.
I didn't see that.
People are that dumb that once something is in like on the media and on the news, they're just mindless fucking drones that just do whatever the fuck is popular.
Right.
And so when you had like Trump got so much more news coverage than everyone else, honestly, that might have been just a huge factor in people voting for him because like I've heard of this guy. And
what do you think's going to happen post-election? Let's play a scenario.
Okay. I think post-election, the fucking bubble's going to burst. The economy is going to fall to shit.
I think so too.
Because we are on the boom part of the boom bust cycle. And we're already seeing it right now. Like the stock market's, fucking dropping, things like that. That's the terrible part about measuring a presidency by the economy is that it almost takes a term for their policies to come into play.
Yeah.
So honestly, if somebody like Bernie Sanders were to win and the economy to shit itself, there they have fucking ammunition for the next election to elect an even fucking more right than Donald Trump kind of guy.
Yeah, more right.
Fucking Alex Jones is going to be the next fucking president. Like, but
wow, that would be some comeuppance right there.
but that's not even like outrageous anymore.
It's really not.
The thing is, it was very much like a monkey paw, Twilight Zone genie situation where it was like, make a wish, and then they're like, I wish anybody could be president, and he's like, your wish is granted. Here's the worst fucking one ever, like, and it's like, you know, that sounds like a good thing on paper, like anybody can be president, but now it's like fucking scary. Anybody can be president.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
So I don't know, because then it's like,
I do
the
want to.
best case scenario is that it just turns into a fucking joke, and The Rock is the next president.
I do want to.
Like,
Yeah,
The
hey,
Rock
he
or
was thinking about it.
Kanye West.
There
Or
was
just like,
there was
who gives
some.
a fuck anymore?
The Rock was on Twitter a long time ago where he talked about wanting to run for
Yeah,
something.
I know. That's why I'm saying that. Like, even somebody like Oprah, like, she might even be more aligned with me politically than somebody like Donald Trump or even The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want Oprah as president, but that's like where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Is that it could just be fucking any like celebrity
Andrew Yang
can just become the president.
There was a real quick. I do want to give a good shout out here to Han Fixar Cabin. Sorry if I got that wrong. He agrees with you. People will follow people as long as it's charismatic.
Yeah. So
No, but back to anybody being president. I want to. We were talking about Rogan a little bit earlier. Did you see listen to the Dan Crenshaw, the congressman with
the eye patch guy?
Yeah.
No, but I fucking hate that guy.
So he talked a lot about Tulsi Gabbard a little bit. I only got about half an hour in before I stopped listening to it.
About Tulsi Gabbard?
More about their disagreements, because he was talking about the non-interventionism and stuff like that, and he kind of took the spin where they talk about. He basically took the stance, we're there so that they don't come here. Mm-hmm. Okay. I get the idea of wanting to be able to react to a situation in the world. I'm okay with that. I think what Tulsi Gabbard's talking about is about not intervening in countries that we have no business being in.
Well, that's the
like
thing.
not trying to overthrow burgeoning democracies.
Yeah, it's not. But we do that. Like, anybody who has even a tenuous grasp of fucking history knows that we meddle in every fucking election where it's somebody who could threaten our global powers.
Right.
Why is it that no fucking communist or socialist country has ever gotten a fair chance? Because we send murder squads to fucking install our own puppet dictators, and we put trade sanctions on them to the point that they can't compete in the global market.
There was
an
author who was on Rogan.
That's the anti-interventionalism, where it's like, we are in the Middle East protecting our private interests.
Mm-hmm.
We don't give a fuck about the people. We don't give a fuck about the child
I think
brides.
it's a point.
We don't give a shit about the terrorism. We create more terrorists by being there.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's beneficial to the powers that be, because it creates endless war. How do you justify a massive military budget if we're in peacetime? If we're not fucking in an endless war on terrorism?
Yeah.
When all we're gonna do is we're gonna fight Al Qaeda, then we're gonna give rise to ISIS. Fucking Osama bin Laden was funded and trained by the CIA. We created these problems ourselves, and we didn't do it not knowing that was gonna happen. We did it full well with that intention.
Well, I mean, you can link Halliburton, I think, back to the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it. I'd have to break that one down
That's
later.
the thing.
But
Like, so I'm not like a huge conspiracy guy. I do believe the official story about 9/11. I do think that it was like a terrorist attack.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that President Bush, I don't think he was fucking smart enough to do something like that. But you know what they did do? They definitely used that as a fucking pivot to Iraq that had nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. Like,
so
and because they know that the American populace is so like uneducated that they go, Iraq, well, they're full of fucking brown people from the Middle East. They probably did have something to do with it, even though Saddam Hussein called the president the next day to like express his condolences for what happened, because he had nothing to fucking do with it. But we go and we use that to invade Iraq. That's the thing. Bernie Sanders was fucking giving a passionate speech about how we shouldn't invade Iraq. That's why I like Bernie Sanders, man, because you got a guy has his. You can look at him throughout history. He's always been on the right fucking side. All right. He's not some guy who just pivoted recently. Even somebody like Joe Biden, who might say like, I'm sorry for what I did, which he doesn't. He doubles down on like fucking siding with white supremacists on like the busing issue. Yeah. But even if you were to be like, I'm sorry and I'm better, why not go with somebody who has been consistently good on these issues throughout his entire political career? Bernie Sanders got a good fucking head on his shoulders.
Yeah, he still knows. I was going to bring up something here, talking about like So the reasoning they used to like invade Iraq was weapons of mass destruction, right? They're like, yeah.
And then found fucking nothing.
Yeah, and even irrespective of that, we know for a fact that like, what's his name? Is it Assad in Syria?
Yeah.
Who like we know that he's demonstrably gassed innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't care about weapons of mass destruction.
No.
The guy's been using chemical weapons for the past 5 years. Not that I'm saying that we should be over there intervening. I mean, the mess is partly our fault to begin with, but it just...
So that's the thing, is that I'm not anti-interventionist to the point that we shouldn't provide, like, aid to countries.
Yeah.
But, yeah, maybe it's not our fucking job.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe... And that's another thing that just goes down to, like, the fossil fuel industry. Maybe if we didn't need their oil, then we wouldn't be fucking in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Could be.
Like, if they didn't know, there's human rights violations going on all over the fucking world.
Going on right here in the country.
You know, we're not out there fucking saving, you know, African countries. We're not out there fucking
It makes me sad in a lot of ways because I used to watch those... like you see those like army commercials and stuff where they'd be like, you know, we're the protectors of freedom, we're the liberators, but then they're really just kind of used, and I feel like terrible for the soldiers who are treated that way.
Honestly, and I don't know if I'm just getting soft in my old age, man, but you know, I saw a video of like vets that were coming back injured. Some of them were missing arms, you know, some of them were missing legs and eyes, and I fucking started crying because I'm like, they're just being thrown away.
Yeah,
their lives
like
are
nothing.
just fucking...
Well, I've said it before.
They don't give a fuck, dude. You are just numbers on a spreadsheet to them of like, oh, we had this many fucking casualties. But they don't care, dude. They are throwing your lives away so that they can make tons of money off of you who's making less than minimum wage. You know?
Well, a lot of people still don't understand. I always tell people this is like the military is one of the largest welfare programs we have. Because they know people will sign up because they're in dire straits, and then they throw them to whatever cause they feel like they need to do.
Yeah, you don't think that factors into why we don't want free college? Because that's a huge reason why people even sign up for the military to begin with. You think that maybe they're scared that a lot less people would fucking be willing to risk their lives for free college if it was provided?
100%.
You know?
And even then, when did they actually institute the college assistance for the army?
There was a Montgomery GI Bill that was during Vietnam, I want to say, and then the 9/11 GI Bill, which is the better one, but you can still choose between the two of them.
Okay.
The 9/11 one allows it to be transferable to your dependents.
Nice.
And I think it doesn't cover like a set amount. I think the Montgomery Bill is like $40,000 flat out, whereas I think like the post 9/11 GI Bill like pays with your college based on like however much it costs.
It's
and
like
also,
20 plus, isn't it, or something like that?
Okay, no, I might be thinking wrong. I think the Montgomery Bill it gives you a flat like rate, whereas the other one will pay you like basic housing allowance for the area that you live in, of an E3 or an E4. Anyway, it's the better one, but we've had that for a while.
Unfix says World War II is when they made the GI Bill.
Okay, the Montgomery GI Bill goes back to World War II. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We need you to be on here fact checking us.
I welcome fact checking too. I don't get upset.
Oh, absolutely. That's why there should be like a dedicated fucking fact checker at every political debate to just be like, you're lying. You're just fucking lying.
So I love me some Rogan for the most part. I didn't enjoy him in the Crenshaw one because like he was actively basically dissing Tulsi, and he didn't step in.
I can't
say anything about it, but it doesn't matter.
I can't abide by Joe Biden. When he had Andy No on, I was a Joe Rogan apologist for a while. Yeah, you know, because he has guests that I like on. Cornel West was on. He had Bernie Sanders on. He had David Pakman.
I enjoyed that Bernie episode too.
So for a while, like, because I have a buddy who's just way more of a communist than I am. Yeah, and he was just talking about how Joe Rogan is, a stepping stone to the alt-right. He's like a gateway to the alt-right. And I was like, he tries to have people on a different... But then he had Andy No on, who is not a reputable journalist. No. Who fucking lies, and he's a fucking weasel, and fucking not to advocate political violence, but maybe deserved to be beat up a little bit. I don't give a fuck that he did. He has done things that have caused actual harm to people and put people's lives at risk. So yeah, to have him on and be like, maybe we should give him a fair shake. Fuck that. And Joe Rogan, like,
I just wish Joe would push more.
Yeah,
on certain things, like he had the Crenshaw guy on, and he was like talking effectively bad on Tulsi, and Joe's just kind of like, okay, I get what you're saying. But it's like, no, push back. You endorse Tulsi, like
Joe Rogan gets what everyone's saying, and that's the problem, is that when you have, one guy on there who's actually spitting facts, and he goes, I understand, I get your point, and then you got another guy on there who's just lying, and he's like, I get your point. Then you're putting them on equal footing when they're not. When one of them is just making shit up.
He's gotten a lot worse at it too. Like, I always feel like back in the day he was a lot better at it.
The only thing that fucking Joe Rogan gives a shit about is whether or not you support legalized marijuana. That's the only thing that he will fight tooth and nail for if anybody is against that, which is, I agree with him on that. But that's not enough to establish a political identity.
I remember why I brought him up now. I'm sorry. You're talking about like why there should be a fact checker at each, I think you said debate. What did you think about the change.org petition? Not that it means anything, but for Joe Rogan to moderate the next debate.
I didn't even see that.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't.
Oh.
But
I signed it.
But Joe Rogan's not like a fact checker, and he's not somebody who's going to push hard on things.
Right.
And,
well,
the thing about being a centrist is that you are by definition in favor of the powers that be.
Yeah.
If you platform both the rich and powerful and the marginalized, well, who's got more power? The fucking rich and powerful. So like,
see, I used to kind of think like that too, and the more I like got into it and really started thinking about it, I was kind of like, well, why should I care if the billionaire pays half of his money in taxes? He's still going to be okay. Like, you are right. When you do put him on equal ground, it gives both sides equal footing to compromise.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what I was kind of getting at earlier when I was like, I'm afraid that the next president, if it's not Trump, if it's Trump, that's a whole nother category. But if it's somebody else, like, they're going to try to make too many concessions and not pull us back in the direction I think we need to go.
Well, and that's the thing when you have like these news organizations who will fucking, they'll have like a climate debate. It's not a debate. So on one end you'll have this fucking guy who's paid off by big oil, and on the other end you'll have an actual guy who's versed in the actual science of it, and you have them debate each other as if this is like a 50-50 thing, when it's not. When one guy has nothing and one guy has all the facts, but you give them both an equal platform and go, you decide. Yeah. Well, guess what? The average fucking American is busy with his own life that he can't like.
It's like the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate.
Sift through the fucking like actual science of it and make an informed decision. So whoever just verbalizes their point better is the one that they're going to listen to. You can't.
I mean, it goes to the Ken Ham Bill Nye debate. I mean, that's a really good example.
But that had a much less of an actual real world like implication.
Well, that's true. Okay, but I mean, it's just
if you don't believe in evolution, you're fucking wrong. But at least like that's not as dangerous as not believing in climate change.
Yeah. Well, look at the DNC though. I mean, they voted the other day not to have a climate change debate. Because there was a big petition to make a singular debate about climate change.
Yeah, which is a good idea. Honestly, fucking cut the candidates in half and have them have long form debates on specific issues. You don't give them here's a question about climate change. Spit out your entire platform in fucking a minute
30
and a half.
seconds.
Yeah. Have long form discussions on singular issues.
In the forums that I participated in, that was one of the things too, like, and maybe I was just too polite in what I was doing, but people would ask me questions and I would give my answers, and I was always about that short and sweet, like, let me get to the point so we can get more in. But then others, everybody would go over their time, they would do these other things and so forth, and just like rack up their minutes talked, but the answers were so unclear and unconcise that nobody cared. So yeah, I don't know. I think, what if instead of doing multiple debates across multiple news or outlets, like each debate itself was solely one issue?
Yeah. I think that's better.
I think so too.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Yeah.
Start our own change.org petition.
But the thing is that they don't, honestly, like,
I think some of the more popular candidates, Joe Biden, I think they would actively conspire against that.
yeah,
Because
no,
that will expose him.
Joe Biden's brain is melting. So I don't think that he could formulate a thought for more than 30 seconds. You see it when he has to go that amount of time. Like in the last debate, he would get to a certain point and just start fucking mumbling and being like, and then you just go, yeah, whatever. And then like that's it. That's as much as his brain can focus.
Or he would do, I fought for these things, you know. Like he would go back and pull the I was vice president card.
Yeah, because honestly, like him and Harris's fucking manufactured feud is the most like bullshit thing because they're the same fucking candidate.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden won that Harris was his fucking VP. Like that I wouldn't. They agree on fucking 99% of the issues. Like in a just world, and I think I've said this before. In a just world, the only candidates worth talking to would be Warren, Bernie, Yang, and Tulsi Gabbard,
Bernie Yang Tulsi.
Bernie Yang Tulsi. I like Warren. I do. I think that once they realize that they need somebody more left leaning than Joe Biden, because Joe Biden just started tanking in the polls, like the establishment's going to recognize that this dude's fucking brain is melting.
Yeah.
Like we can't back him anymore.
Yeah, I do think
they're gonna look at Warren as a safer alternative to Bernie.
Yeah.
And, you know, ideally it would be Bernie, but Warren's not the worst.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would be okay with Warren. And I'm going to vote for whoever wins the nom. Because regardless of where we're at, we got to get rid of Big T.
Yeah.
Period. It's not going to make all the problems go away, but it's going to take a big voice out of the picture.
Yeah. But I also it's a pivotal point as far as the presidential debate goes, but it's also a very pivotal point as far as where the Democratic nomination goes, because somebody like Joe Biden is not enough.
Right.
And if that reinforces this idea that we need people like Joe Biden, then that's just going to be another downward. That's going to be another drag to the right.
Here's an even better way to phrase this kind of argument here. What is an issue to you? Do you know? Can you think of off the top of your head that would be okay to concede something on? Because I was kind of thinking about this the other day, and I was like, there's a lot of things, and this is how I think I know I've kind of moved out of center territory and more to the left, because there are a lot of things where I don't think concessions should be made.
So that's the thing, is that I tried to not be like a fucking partisan hack.
Yeah.
You know, I try to look at things from all perspectives. But the fact of the matter is that conservatives are wrong about fucking everything. Literally everything. They are wrong on climate change. They are wrong on the war on drugs. They are wrong on sex education. They are wrong on women's reproductive rights. They are wrong on economic issues. They are wrong on almost fucking everything. I can't think of anything that I would say like we should meet them in the middle. Absolutely not. Climate change, I think that's the biggest existential threat to humanity, that they are actively killing us if we meet them halfway. Like, I can't think of a single. I really can't either. I can't. Maybe. I don't know.
I really can't either, because it seems like
the stuff that they claim to be about, stuff like, you know, we're for the troops. You know, these massive like increases to military spending aren't going to the troops. If you actually look at the voting records of congressmen, every single veteran benefit bill got voted down by Republicans. Every single one of them.
And
they are not for the troops. They're for war. So I can't think of a single fucking issue that I would say maybe they got a point. Like maybe there's wasteful spending in the government. Maybe.
Okay, I can see that one.
But you know, but
I don't think that's a concession issue, though. I think everybody agrees on that.
Yeah, but their solution to that would be like
cut everything.
Yeah, rather than see, the thing is that even if we have a representational democracy, so you know, these government organizations are in theory supposed to represent us. We supposedly have a say in how they operate based on our vote. If you take that away and just put corporations in charge, we're not on their fucking board of directors. They can do whatever they want without any input from us. So at least like the nominal fucking representation we get from voting for government agencies is better than having literally no say and they can do whatever the fuck they want. So I can't think of a single issue that right wingers are correct on. Maybe no, because even like the surface level stuff like identity politics, they're just as bad at it. Sure, like I'm not, I think fucking some liberals are goofy,
Yeah.
but they're fucking like, these short haired, dyed haired, fucking like in your face, like, overly sensitive, all these things that they like to insult the left on. Sure, but like who's more overly sensitive? Like who the fuck flipped out? Who flushed their Gillette razors down for a fucking commercial?
Oh, yeah,
like,
the Gillette
like
commercial.
Who burned their fucking Nikes because somebody, who flipped out when Starbucks had a red cup for Christmas that didn't say Merry Christmas on it. So like even on things like identity politics, they're just as bad. So I can't like, I can't think of one. No,
I can't either. I often think about it because I do, from my rational mind, I do try to think of things like, okay, I want to see your point. But like the more I dig into different issues, I'm just like, okay, none of this is like you're just not right. It's like, okay, so we want to eventually move away from fossil fuels is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a problem with that. We move to renewables.
Yeah.
Where's the bad? Like, what do you want? Like, you still want gas? Like, I don't understand like what you want.
They want to squeeze every last drop of oil possible because that's where their money is.
Yeah.
So that they're gonna be interested in fracking, even though it makes fucking flammable fucking water. Like,
yeah.
Like they're gonna. That's the thing, is that they just don't want to lose the capital that they have, and that is the fossil fuel industry. That's why they're fighting tooth and nail about it. That's why this idea that it's some sort of hoax or conspiracy. What's more likely, that the fledgling green energy company is paying off fucking 99% of climate scientists, or that the multi-billion-dollar oil industry is paying off 1% of the scientists?
Exactly.
Like, where the fuck do you think the money is at?
Yeah.
So
even I think that just goes good example. I think even the anti-vaxxer guy, the doctor that killed himself because he knew he was wrong and he admitted it.
yeah,
One study is all it took.
yeah,
And the entire movement was created out of it.
yeah, and he did it solely for profit reasons, because he was actually trying to sell his fucking vaccine.
Yeah.
His vaccine that wasn't going to cause autism. So it's like, no, dude, they are actively killing everything. They're actively ruining the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there was like a question posed, like, do you think you can be a good Republican? And it's like, no. Because like someone might be like, it might just be a difference of opinion. What if it's an evil opinion?
Yeah.
Like,
Can you be a good Republican? I would say you could. But and the only way to do that would be to vote for Bernie Sanders.
so the thing is, like,
So it's the litmus test of
if you have any,
I don't know.
like,
I've said in the past that I think everybody lies on like a political spectrum. Most people lay sort of in the middle where they're okay with certain things, but they aren't okay with, a couple other things. But generally, most people want the same thing. But we're at a point, to me, where a lot of what they want to fight for is, quote, superficial. Like they don't like minimum wage. They don't like, they know that it's low. Most people will tell you like, yeah, most people aren't paid enough. I didn't see that coming. We'll come back to that one in a minute. Yeah, it just, the vast majority of people, they want the same things. They want to be secure in certain things, but they just keep voting against themselves, and it baffles me.
Well, that's the thing. Before I became fucking radicalized, I used to think like, you know what? Nobody wants a worse world. Like, who the fuck like is out there going like, I want to make the world a worse place? But the thing is, like, that if you're a conservative, you want to make a worse world for everyone else. And you can see it in the fucking language that they use. Why is Narcan free for junkies, but my insulin cut? Like, they don't give, like, they do want less for it. Why should burger flippers make $15 an hour when I only make $15? rather than saying, why am I only making 15?
Yeah, they never
Like,
point the
they-
blame at the right people.
Yeah,
They're
they
like, why does
don't-
the poor worker want to make more
Yeah,
money?
they do want.
Why doesn't my employer pay me more?
Yeah, they do want a worse world for other people.
Yeah, it's like
That's the thing. They don't want they do want a worse world.
Yeah,
And I
mind
go,
you, this whole idea of like not talking about your wages, like that's a corporate idea.
Yeah.
Like that's not illegal. Like a lot of employers will tell you, like don't
you
talk
know, but
about
you
how much you
can
make.
get fucking
You can in an at-will place for sure.
yeah.
But like like that's why that was started it was to prevent you from overvaluing yourself so you can get more money. It's like
Yeah.
I did an interview when I was in store management, and they, the guy asked me, he's like, what do you think you're worth? And I was like, I want 90,000 a year, which was totally outrageous for the position. But the idea behind it, I was like, I'm not going to devalue myself to you so that you'll hire me
Well,
more.
you that's how you negotiate. You don't
Yeah.
start at what you actually want. You
Yeah,
know, fucking-
exactly.
But
So just the lesson there, folks, don't devalue yourself.
yeah. Well, also just like if things are bad for other people, don't be upset at them for trying to better themselves. Try to better yourself too. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like their mind works in such a way that like as long as I'm better off than this guy, then things are okay. And it's like it's insane. It's they only give a shit about themselves. Like, and it's something like who was it? Is it Dick Cheney's daughter that's a lesbian or whatever?
I think so.
Like
I'd have to
I
look
forget.
that one up.
It was some like Republican
Yeah.
like somebody like it was either a president or vice president's wife became like a huge advocate for gay
Mhm.
rights after they turned out that their daughter was a lesbian.
Yeah.
And it's like that's how their mind works.
Yeah.
It's not a problem unless it's a problem to me personally. And it's good. I'm glad that they came around to the right position, but that's what it takes. Like
Yeah.
for them, they have no fucking empathy. They don't like the fact of the matter is that if you are cool with fucking children dying in custody of ICE, like if you're cool with ICE raids, fucking taking parents away from their kids while they're at school and they show up and their fucking folks aren't home and they have no idea
Or
what the
yanking
fuck to
you
do,
out of your car, which is
Or-
illegal.
or shoving you into fucking like cages that are so small you can barely fucking sleep, not providing showers or fucking toothbrushes. If you're like okay with that and you think like, oh, like
Mm-hmm.
then like what can I say to you? Like I don't I
How can I sell
how
this
can
to
I
you?
explain human empathy to a person? How can I explain that like suffering isn't okay just because it's not happening to you?
Yeah, suffering doesn't have to be part of the human experience.
Yeah.
Like it really doesn't.
No, and it's like
I know, and I don't want to hear the whole thing where it's like a little test of will or whatever makes
Yeah.
you stronger in the end. I get that, but like there are certain things that just don't
Yeah.
have to be.
or just if you hear about some fucking kid in the Middle East getting killed in a drone strike, like that should make you fucking sad. That's a fucking person. That's a whole human being with like that has dreams and passions and things that they want to do with their lives, and you're just fucking ending a life. Like those are
Yeah,
like,
it's
those
that
are, those
I
are
think-
problems, dude.
I think one
Like,
or two
those
shows
fucking-
ago, it's the heaven on earth thing I talked about. It's like we focus so
Yeah.
many on these little weird things when it's like
But,
we
like,
could create a heaven on earth if we
you
were
know,
willing to put the effort into
But
it.
think about like even something like Flint, Michigan. You have kids that are getting fucking cancer.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's-
Flint should
that's
horrify
fuck- or,
people
like,
because that
fucking-
could be anywhere.
Yeah, like our infrastructure is trash, dude. Like you could be giving your kid a glass of water and they can get fucking brain damage from fucking lead poison.
Yeah.
Like those things should bother you.
Yeah.
Like
It
just
should,
because
it should
it's
bug
okay-
you that Nestle is taking, this was in the news the other day, that I'm taking 1 million gallons out of a new public spring because they want to bottle more water and sell it back to people.
Yeah, it's tough to like at a certain point. It's like, do we even try to win these people over? Like, is it even possible to be like, these things are
Yeah.
bad, dude. Human suffering is a fucking not a good thing. And it's just like, yeah, dude. Just on everything, and even like things that like they try to make in a big deal is like fucking just being mean to trans people. like who cares? Like why do you care?
Yeah, who
like,
cares?
Why, like but why? Like but they'll do things that are inherently incendiary.
Yeah.
Like they'll keep things on like the abortion debate. They'll keep things on like the trans debate because these are like headline grabbing things.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes they'll fucking rob you blind, you know?
Yeah.
But
they put the front on so that it keeps you occupied.
But it's like, yeah, dude, even stuff like that of just like, I'm not gonna, like, fucking Ben Shapiro when he was on Joe Rogan, yeah, he's like a huge one about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna modify my language just to suit your mental illness, blah, blah, blah. But he was talking about Laverne Cox from, she's the trans lady on Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
And at one point he calls her, and then he corrects himself to say him. Like, it wasn't even that it was he actually referred to her as the gender that she identified as and modified his language to do to the thing that hurts her. So it was like, you are actually doing the opposite of what you said you were going to do. You're modifying your language to hurt people. Mm-hmm. because she presents as a woman and she like looks like a woman and acts like a woman. So it's easy to say she, so much so that he called her she and then corrected himself to call her him. And so it's just like,
that Shapiro dude, when he was on Rogan too, I listened to that whole thing. He came out moderately chill, like in the way that he created a more accessible version of himself for that interview. Because I have a friend of mine who's he's pretty liberal. I think he's more disinterested, but generally speaking, he's pretty liberal. Yeah. And he was even talking. He's like, I don't know. I didn't even know who that Ben Shapiro was, but listening to him talk, I really kind of thought he was saying some pretty nice stuff. And I was like, don't let him fool you.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's an act.
That's the fucking
I was like,
the rabbit hole you go down.
Listen to his solo show, and you'll be like, oh, what?
Yeah, read any comments. I don't know what's
I've addressed most of them. One that I didn't get to was I didn't realize I didn't see it. Was saying that Bernie was clueless when it comes to economics.
Disagree. Fucking massively disagree.
I think I would too.
In what way?
I think me, like, I think the big one is like this idea. This is a kind of probably a different route where you're gonna go, but I think this idea that we can somehow map economics.
I think you can.
I think you can do basic trends. Like, I do believe in the business cycle, which is like that 40-year cycle of ups and downs. But like, I mean, you have so many economics professors, you know, every year they all come out, a handful of them, and are like, you know, the crash is imminent.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not true. Sometimes it is. What is it? Peter Schiff is a big one, who I believe he does everything he does just to sell more gold. But that's, you know, that's irrespective of what I'm getting at here. He's been calling for a new collapse, like, ever since the recovery started. And he may be right now, because I think we are headed towards some form of recession.
Absolutely.
But
that happens. You see, you know how I know that it's bullshit, the right wing talking? All right. First of all, I don't think the deficit's that big of a deal.
I don't either.
I'm just going to come out and fucking say that, which is already going to get people to be like, what? How do you not think it's a big deal? Because it's just every single president.
I'll take that one after this next point is over, because I can explain why.
But Trump is projected to set a record for the deficit. All right. No Republican president has balanced the budget since Dwight Eisenhower. You know, Republican economics don't fucking work. It turns out that cutting programs that are worth millions, but then giving tax cuts that are worth billions, doesn't exactly make a fucking balanced budget. And also, just when you enact Republican or conservative economics, what you do is you give more power to monopolies. See, what people don't understand is that starting your own business is a huge gamble. Something like Medicare for All would be a huge burden lifted from somebody trying to start a small business. I worked for a small tree service that was literally just 4 guys. It was me, 2 other climbers, and the guy who owned it, who also climbed. I left that job for a different job because they had better benefits and could offer better pay. And it was like, I got to do what's right for me, you know? If everyone had Medicare for All, that wouldn't factor into it. You wouldn't have to compete with businesses that have way more resources that can offer better looking deals. And it would help small businesses.
And you wouldn't have giant multi-bazillion-dollar companies signing worse health deal agreements with insurance companies because they don't want to pay as much.
Yeah.
like every year my insurance gets worse and worse and worse and so forth and so forth.
And it's a fact that when you give
premiums go up,
when you give more spending power to the working class, it helps the economy. It helps businesses. People would buy more things if they had more fucking money.
Mm-hmm.
That's just fucking what it is. You have all these things like millennials are killing all of these different industries. Yeah, it's because they don't have the disposable income of generations prior to them.
Yeah.
So they cut corners where they can. And what does that do? That kills these niche businesses that would be nice to buy if you had more money, but you're not going to buy them because they're not necessities. That hurts those businesses. So no, I don't think that Bernie Sanders is an idiot when it comes to economics. Like, in what way? In what fucking way?
Yeah.
Like, do you think Trump is a fucking genius when it comes to economics? Because all he's doing is helping his rich fucking asshole buddies.
And him.
And conveniently himself. You know,
yeah.
if
Here's a good example of this real quick, economics wise. And this is more of an illegal thing that's going to get completely glossed over. But Trump, I guess the United States is to pick the next host city of the G7 summit. And, Trump Resort is where he wants to do it, which is illegal. But you know, what do I know?
No, I think it's painfully obvious how fucking corrupt this guy is. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't even do a good job of hiding it. But yeah, if you think that an economy that works for the super wealthy is good, then yeah, Bernie is an idiot when it comes to economics. If you think an economy that actually works for everybody, then no, everything he's proposing is the right thing.
Mm-hmm. That's where like I think Andrew Yang gets a good mark from me too, is he talks about, what is it, the trickle up economy?
Yeah,
the economy that works for the low class.
Yes, because that's how it actually happens. It turns out when you give money to the top, they just fucking hoard it. Mm-hmm. When you give money to people that are living check to check, they spend it and circulate it.
Mm-hmm. Or pay down debt. That's a big one. Consumer debt is huge across the board. Doesn't matter what income level you're at. Consumer debt is at an all-time high. And every dollar that you have that goes into your debt ratio payments every month is less dollars that you can save or invest in yourself or put back into the economy.
Yeah, that's the thing is that, lower class people pay a higher percentage of their money in taxes.
Yes. And that we talked a little bit about in the earlier of the stream, talking about regressive taxes like property and sales tax.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if they're spending all of their money, then all that money is going back into the economy. They're paying tax on all of that money. Whereas rich people who either set up fucking sham charities to avoid taxes or base their businesses in other countries to avoid taxes or go to tax havens, they're the ones who are not paying their fair share. Yeah. So, I don't know. Is that guy still in? Did he say anything else?
No response from that, but
all right.
But I think we covered that pretty well. Let's see here. The only other one is we don't need to intervene to stop communism. To defeat communism, all I have to do is wait. But I think that was more of a...
See, I don't think that's true. Of course, again, I'm not like a big reader in Marxist philosophy, but there are very different schools of thought in communism. So communism is an economic policy. So you can have like a dictatorial government with a communist economic system, just as you could have a dictator with a capitalist economic system. So the thing of communism failing has to do with its governance, not with the economic policy itself. So, when people like to point to Stalin or Mao, well, there's different forms of communism. You could point to any number of failed capital. Like, if you want to compare blood on people's hands, it's not even a contest of who has more. You can chalk up every single death in relation to imperialism to capitalism if you really fucking wanted to. Mm-hmm. Anybody who dies of preventable illness, you could chalk that up to capitalism if you really wanted to. Everybody who dies of starvation, you could chalk that up to capitalism. Mm-hmm. So if you really want to compare, fucking when climate change wipes out the entire fucking planet, you could chalk that up to capitalism. So I don't think that this idea that communism is bad or inherently going to ruin everything, I don't think that holds any water.
See, maybe this is where I come a little more like to the middle, I suppose. If that, I don't even know if I want to say that. More like the middle of the left, so to speak. Because
Sure.
I think there are certain things like I consider like unions, for instance.
Mhm.
I consider that to be a more communistic idea.
Well,
If is that a good way to put it?
yeah, by definition, well, now we're going to talk about socialism, because I didn't look up the definition of communism recently, so I couldn't say it verbatim, but I did look up socialism recently, and in the dictionaries, all socialism is when the workers control the means of production, which I think does describe communism pretty well as well. The unions are the best way to do that. Unions are the best
And that's
way for
why,
the
like, I
workers to
support
control
I
it.
support
Yeah.
unions, but like, I don't know. I just think I always thought that my ideal would be like to take the best ideas of everything and make it all work.
Yeah, maybe they're.
But then,
You know,
like we
I'm
said
not-
earlier, the right has no good ideas.
Yeah,
So
I'm not like a purist.
yeah,
You know, where I think that we have to do it this way, or that I'm not willing to converse with other people on the left.
yeah.
And
Oh,
you
I
know,
love having the discussion with people.
absolutely.
I love talking to people.
You know, as long as I feel like they're good faith actors and that they're genuine people and that they want the right thing, I'm more than willing to have a conversation about that. Do I think something like social democracy can work? Definitely.
Mhm.
I think it would absolutely be an improvement to what we have.
Yeah.
Am I gung ho on the fact that there should be no private industry whatsoever? Not so much, you know. I mean, ideally, you know,
I think
but I do think that they're.
I think government sponsored monopolies should be gone. I think
Yeah.
things that are, I think we talked about earlier, pretty good and summed it up pretty good. Like utilities and things shouldn't be for profit, in my opinion.
I think, yeah, you know, certain industries are fine in the private sector. Like I said, video games, fine.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. You know. Well,
Hello, Big Papa Joji.
hello. Did he say anything? Or?
No, just a hello.
Oh, okay. Well, what's up, man? You know, so I'm not unreasonable in having these discussions. So, you know, when I say that like I'm an anarcho-communist, I just mean in an ideal world. If we
Yeah.
could get it to work, then I think that would be the best system if we could get it to work. But like, would I settle for social democracy? Fucking absolutely.
Yeah, that's the concession you're willing to make.
Yeah, definitely. But
Perfect.
I don't think. Yeah, but I don't think that
Yeah.
like.
But we got to get there though, too. That's the big one. We gotta.
Yeah,
We
because
gotta-
I honestly don't think you can go straight from what we have now to communism with anything short of a violent revolution.
Yeah.
Like, I think if we want to go through the proper channels,
Well,
then what
I
it's going to
think-
take is a gradual move to the left.
I've always used the analogy of a car on the interstate or a car on the highway. Like you can't just make a 90-degree right turn at full speed and expect good results.
Yeah. But, I don't know.
It'll take some systematic dismantling and some stepping progress, and just little
Sure.
things have to be made in order to make that
Sure.
actual progress.
But I don't know. I don't know if... I mean, how far would a government have to go for you to be on board with an actual violent revolution? Like, at what point?
Oh,
would it be
man.
like- would it be like this is too far? You know?
That would be...
Because, you know, what do you think about like that guy that like firebombed the ICE center to try to free the kids? Like, do you think that was wrong to do? Like, do you think he was an evil guy?
No, I don't think. Well, what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, or something like
Okay.
that. Is that the
But
phrase?
I mean, yeah.
So yeah, no, it just. Okay. So no, that's a really hard question to answer on the political violence thing, because there is a breaking point, but it's hard to really determine
Yeah.
where it is until you actually get there. Because it's easy to take the stance of like, I would fight back if they tried to come take my guns, kind of thing. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
because
But,
you know
like,
they'll never try.
right. It's easy to make those statements, but as to where like,
But like,
you know, are we talking like a full blown like Red Dawn situation? Like that's hard
Or,
to say until like where it
you
would
know,
be impossible to fight back. You know?
because it's almost just like, how much evil can somebody do
Yeah.
before it's like this is enough? You know, we orchestrate fucking manufactured wars for profit. You know, like, I don't know. I just think like, why is it okay for a handful of politicians to enact policies that kill thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. But like, you know, it's like when fucking that Coke guy died.
Yeah, Charles
and like
Koch.
people were like fucking celebrating his death, and some people were like, "This is wrong. You can't do that because somebody died." You know how many people died because of that guy?
Yeah.
Like fuck him, fucking piss in his grave. I don't give a fuck, dude. Like you don't get to you're not.
You don't get to pay for junk science and like get out of not reaping the result. You know what I mean?
You don't get to
that's
actively.
That's basically what it felt like.
Yeah,
it's like he got out like at the best possible time for him, in a way. Okay, we'll take a quick viewer question real quick here. Could you please explain how anarcho-communism would work? He spoke to a guy last night about it and was not great at explaining it.
Okay. I probably should have written some stuff down. Essentially, so a lot of people like to think that it might be sort of a contradiction of anarcho and communism, but that's not true. And anarchy is just the abolition of unnecessary hierarchies. So the idea of like the moneyed class and the working class is an unnecessary hierarchy. Basically, there would be no private industry. Not that you couldn't have private property, like you couldn't have your own private domicile or your private things that are yours. However, you couldn't, if you are producing all of the profits in a company as one of the workers, but receiving, like, it's hard to explain. Profits by definition are stealing from labor, right? Because you're making
more or less
making all this money, but they're getting a set amount that's not included in that money. Basically, it would be that we would all share in the fruits of our labor, essentially. So
like at the basic level, like any work you perform, you would be getting your just compensation, and the parent organization that contracted said labor would only receive its equal part.
Yes.
So it takes
based on how much they actually contribute. And the thing about anarcho-communism is that it doesn't mean the abolition of the government, because the government is the best way to do that, is the best way to redistribute the fruits of your labor to public services and goods that are utilized by everybody. So things like education, healthcare, food, housing, things that shouldn't be privatized would be available to everybody. So, you know, when people always say, like, is it equality of outcome or equality of opportunity? It's equality of opportunity. Like, yeah, people who actually do things that are more valuable will be valued higher. But you wouldn't fucking be living in abject poverty just because you've got a job that is deemed menial. You know, same thing that like Andrew Yang talks a lot about is that like certain jobs don't have a set economic value, like being a homemaker or a housewife. You make nothing, and so you can't contribute to your household. Well, you know, I think that raising kids is something that's important, and so we should be able to do that and not fucking starve to death.
Big Papa Joji asks, so you could still theoretically be more wealthy than somebody else?
It's varying degrees, but yeah, in my version of it, yeah. I don't think that like somebody who has a trade or a skill that required a lot more know-how than somebody else should be at like absolutely equal to somebody else. But I don't think that it should be so far. So like doctors would be like a good example. So doctors make, you know, I think on average $400,000 a year. It's fucking good.
I think it's
It might 300, 400,000.
Like I think it's like 100 to 200, but go ahead.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so even less.
Yeah.
So doctors are always what we consider like a high status job.
Yeah. Unless you're like I just want to clarify, unless you're like a high like degree specialty, like neurosurgeons and so forth are paid higher, but a lot of them also go to bigger cities for the better opportunity.
So something like that. That requires, you know, high levels of education and specialization and provides a high value service would actually be paid more according to what they provide, rather than, because doctors are not wealthy elites, despite the fact that they are better educated and more skilled than who we
Right.
consider to be high level elites. So
Sorry, we had a show previous where I kind of burned doctors from the
you talk
onset.
shit about doctors for no reason. You just talk shit about doctors, but like, so somebody like, a venture capitalist wouldn't be making billions while doctors make 100,000.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It would just be a
you
more
wouldn't have
level
shadow
playing
trading.
field, based on actual value that they produce, not just like
See, that's one thing I've always argued.
not just like predatory capitalism
and this
or
is-
like stock market
yeah.
trades or speculatory stock market trades where you buy and sell a company within a matter of minutes just because you're making pennies on the dollar.
Yeah,
Like,
watching
that
your
job
private
exists-
equity flourish so you can kill Toys R Us kind of thing.
Yeah, that stuff like that exists purely because of capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's actually a big
or-
retail chain around the area that are from more of the north central part of the country. They're called Shopko. They actually just went out of full retail business because of basically equity trading.
Yeah,
Same thing. That's also like one reason, like when I talk to people about like when you ever just ask yourself this question: have you ever thought about what you actually contribute to a company that you work for? Like, what is the dollarage of your value, and what percentage are you getting back of that?
yeah.
So like if you're somebody who does $1 million in sales for your company, for instance, of whatever product it is you're selling, like what percentage are you getting back? Like, are you salaried low? Because like, and that's kind of, I think, where the idea comes from. This is something I've always argued for people for too. It's like, just stop and think about what you do for your company and how many, like if you're a bus maker, you make buses and your company sells $10 million of buses a year. What percentage of that is going to you? Like, think about that. Like, if you're making
Very little.
$15 an hour, you're a welder. And I know welders can get paid more. My dad's one. I'm just using this as an example because it's a fair number. You're making $30,000, $40,000 a year, maybe after overtime. But that company's made $10 million on your work. Like, you should get a better percentage of that because you've provided a much better service. Like, that's kind of, I think, where the idea comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that fair? That's the way I've always summed it up.
I think that's fair. See, I'm not for maybe like the abolition of private property as far as like things that you can own, but for the abolition of private industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's the best way to put it, I think.
Okay. That's fair. So hopefully that
Yeah.
eventually we intend to have a guest on who can get into this stuff a lot more detail than we can.
I got a buddy who's just far better at explaining this because he actually is somebody who's a big reader into Marxist philosophy. So I'm nominally anarcho-communist because it's just everything that he said were things that I had already believed inherently, but I couldn't like regurgitate it to you right now.
And I'm more socialist Democrat than democratic socialist Democrat.
A democratic socialist would still be a capitalist.
Okay.
Or no, other way around. Social democrat would still be a capitalist, whereas a democratic socialist is a post-capitalist economic system.
I gotta do
So-
some thinking on that and figure out exactly where I stand. Because I think maybe I'm the same in a way. Because I don't care if certain industries stay private, but I think the things that affect everybody, electricity, gas, power, that kind of thing, shouldn't be a private company. That should definitely be a public entity.
Yeah. More of just like, I think that, and I don't think that it's a radical idea to say that necessities like food, shelter, education, healthcare, utilities, water, these things should be provided to everybody.
Yeah. And I only tagged Democrat onto that too because I registered Democrat in 2016. I was a registered independent prior to that for several years.
See, is anything better?
No, we haven't
I
got
can't
a
see the chat.
no, not yet.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'll do a better job of explaining that at some point.
yeah.
I get asked that fairly frequently, so I should definitely have that more prepared.
You gotta
a more prepared
you have
spiel into it.
the pre-written spiel,
Yeah.
like a phone center.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling
Thank you for
anarcho-communism.
going, here's the definition of anarcho-communism.
Well, your one-stop communist shop.
Basically, it would be,
I think another
abolition
problem-
of the state in that there would be
Oops.
sort of libertarian ideals as far as like what people can do with their own bodies. However, it would be very strict regulations on companies and corporations. So like you'd be allowed to do drugs, get abortions, get gay married, do all that stuff. but
That's all you. It's all on you. Well, like one of my libertarian friends told me something too that I've always tried to find like the counterpoint to. Mm-hmm. It's and I know me and you have talked about this off mic, but I'll bring it up now. Where he said that nothing that has no not anything that doesn't have a victim shouldn't be a crime. Mm-hmm. I think that's the way he worded it.
Yes.
And I keep trying to find some good counterpoints, and I just can't.
Because like the thing is like, if a fucking tweaker, breaks into your car and steals your radio, the crime was that he broke into your car and stole your radio. Yeah. It wasn't that he fucking is a tweaker.
Yeah.
Like that's not the crime.
It reminds me a little bit of the old Futurama joke where he's like, they put Bender in the insane asylum, I think is the episode, and he's like, well, all the jails are full since you declared mental illness a crime.
Yeah. Well, I forget. There's a philosopher who says that the laws in all their wisdom prevent both the rich and the poor from sleeping under bridges. And basically the point is that the law says that, but it doesn't affect the rich. They're not allowed, neither of them are allowed to sleep under bridges, but only one of those groups actually needs to.
Hit.
Yes.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I actually like that. I should look up who said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just baffles me. Like, it just really sums up. I'll throw like a Rogan quote out because I think this sums it up in a way kind of good. It's like, why wouldn't you want less losers?
Yeah.
Like at the heart of everything.
It's because money is a drug, dude.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
That's about where we're at, man.
Because I don't get it either, though, to be honest. Like, if you had everything you ever could have wanted, like, why do you still fucking want?
Why do you need more? See, it goes back to that psychology we were talking about too earlier. Because like when you grow up in like the working class, and for me, I don't believe in the middle class. I don't think it exists anymore. I think there's the working class, and then there's the extraordinarily wealthy. I don't think there's an in between.
There's a huge divide, even of like I said, like what we consider to be like a high-paying, high-powered job, like a doctor, are not fucking rich.
Right.
Making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, excellent. Like it's good. It's a good living.
Yeah, they say
but they're not. They're not millionaires. Yeah. They're not billionaires.
They say the barrier of entry to the quote middle class, or where it should be after everything's all said and calculated, is now like $500,000 or so. Like that's the barrier of entry. Like the 1% is $1 million a year.
I don't know a single person.
Yeah, that's why. So I use that a lot, and everybody always looks at me like I'm crazy because like that's such a right wing selling point. It's like we got to protect the middle class. It's like no, you've destroyed the middle class. There is no middle class. Yeah. There's the working class, and there's the extraordinarily wealthy.
Yeah,
there's really not an in between anymore. Two fat losers who can't even get a
Go ahead. Say it on the screen.
Oh, okay. I was trying to like understand what they're saying. Two fat losers who can't even get a girl complain about people more successful than them. State of Modern Humanity 2019.
Oh, bro, I got a girl.
Yeah, I am married, so all right.
Nah, and I don't do bad with the ladies, brother. Not complaining about people being more successful than me.
It's not about being more successful.
And the thing is that like I do all right. I got my own place. Fucking make enough to do a lot of things that I want to do. It's honestly a lot of these things wouldn't affect me personally. Mm-hmm. Truth is that like I already went to college. Free college wouldn't really affect me personally. I make more than $15 an hour. $15 an hour minimum wage wouldn't really benefit me at all. I get pretty good health insurance. Medicare for all wouldn't benefit me very much at all. So no, this idea that things are only problems if they're problems for you is what's inherently toxic about the conservative mindset. Just because you're not suffering doesn't mean that people aren't suffering.
Right.
And,
again, it's just why wouldn't you want less losers?
How can you sit there and defend, multi-billionaires who have more money than they could possibly spend in their lifetimes while there are people who have nothing? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, Yeah, it's not even about being against the successful. I'm all for people being successful. What I'm not for is people gaming the system
Yeah.
to ensure their success stays continued and nobody else can get ahead.
Yeah, the
Like
idea that
in
they're
one of our previous shows,
Yeah.
somebody used the example. They're like, why don't you do a high risk situation to make yourself more and get ahead more? It's like, well, the barriers of entry are so high that it's unfeasible for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that these successful people, you realize that they achieve their success off the backs of other people. They achieve their success from a modern society. They rely on the infrastructure that's created by the Commonwealth. They didn't just fucking on an island manifest their wealth through sheer force of will. They rely on the working class to buy their goods. They rely on the working class to work in their factories and to work in their warehouses and to work on their fucking things. They rely on public education to educate their workers. They rely on public roads to distribute their goods. They rely on all of these things. And so, yeah, they should provide a basic standard of living for everyone else. All right, what do you say?
Yeah, just more trolling.
Read it. I won't hear it.
It says, two unwashed, unshaven virgins pretend to have good lives while living in what appears to be a shared apartment.
This is actually my place.
Yep, not mine.
He doesn't live here,
Yeah.
but he's got kids, so we set everything up in my place just because I don't have kids, and it would just be more secure here.
Yeah.
It's not a shared apartment. We don't live together.
Yep.
I live by myself.
Yeah.
I'm fucking. Well, go ahead and read it.
He says, the fact that we've got a road is clearly why I have $1 million and you don't, because it's not like you don't have access to the same road, right? If half of what you said was true, everybody would be a billionaire but the art.
Okay, so fact of the matter is that, and I've said this earlier in the stream too, that most wealth is inherited. That's not my opinion. That's what it is. People are subject to different lives. People are subject to different privileges. This idea that everyone has equal opportunity is simply not the case. Everybody relies on other people at some point in their lives. I don't know your life story. I don't know what you did. But at the end of the day, you can't really say that. Okay, what did he say?
The idea of they built this on the back of the unacknowledged thing is bullshit. Everybody has access to public goods. Most people don't make it. Tons of successful people started in normal working to middle class families.
No, that's just not true. That's not true. Well, I guess it depends on what you define as successful.
Yeah.
Because if you consider becoming a doctor successful, then sure, I think that a lot of people can become doctors, but a lot of people can't become mega rich without certain other
But here's the
advantages.
point, though. We talked about it a little bit earlier, too, when we were explaining it to the other guy, whatever his name was. I'm sorry, I can't remember. It's not about equality of outcome. It's about
equality of opportunity.
Yeah, equality of opportunity. It's like, so, talking about access to public goods is like, okay, then how come there are so many people who go to poorer schools, so to speak, and have worse outcomes because they still had access to public school, even though it's not as good as another public school.
This is the thing. There are price barriers to certain things. Schools are funded by property tax. So schools in poorer communities are less funded. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. Yeah. College prices have increased 4,000% since the 70s.
Roads and infrastructure in impoverished communities are objectively worse, so those people are automatically set behind.
Some people are fucking born on third base and thought they had a triple, man. You can, if your life born, I don't know. It's difficult to put into the perspective of somebody who probably hasn't dealt with these issues, but there are people who come from single parent households, single income households. There are people who get childhood illnesses. There are people who can't afford to go to school. There are people who have to get jobs immediately after high school just to keep a roof over their families' heads. There are people who are one medical emergency away from being bankrupt for the rest of their lives. There are people who go to school and come out in debt for the rest of their lives. I just saw somebody today posted their student loan summary. They paid $16,000 worth of their $27,000 loan, and they owe $26,000 on it still. These things are objectively not cool things that happen, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand the perspective of somebody who is going to demonize the people with the least amount of power, with the least amount of influence, and prop up people who have the most amount of power and do the least amount of work. That's just what it is.
Yep.
I've gone from working at the bottom of a company to being a manager, and I'm gonna be honest with you, less work at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exploitation, not getting what you're worth. Things that we covered already.
Things that we've talked about. To think that it's okay that some people are fucking born in there is no more class mobility. That's just what it is. The numbers are in. If you are born in poverty, you are not going to be a Fortune 500 top earner. You're not. That's just the actual numbers. Okay. And that's not like, oh wow, that's a weird fucking coincidence that happened. It's like, no, there's a reason for it. You have more opportunities the more money you have. Keep reading. What's this guy saying?
We're not gonna.
We're
not gonna address it. It's not worth it on stream.
I want to read it.
It's I'll show you after the fact. It's not worth going into after stream. He's at this point in time, we're getting into some rough territory with that.
No, I want it. We'll cut this for the podcast, but I want to hear it.
All right, let's see here. Let's see. He says we're an embarrassment to our species, and he says the poor people who have bad outcomes because of their genes and because of their culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we know the kind of dude that we're dealing with.
Yeah, that's not even worth our time at this point with that.
Well, it's funny because
trolling.
like you start like at a place of maybe contention that we could kind of like we could discuss. Maybe we can like change your mind a little bit, but then it goes into fucking nonsense.
Yeah. So
like clearly this dude, you either don't believe what you're saying and you're just trolling, which not a good thing, but fucking have at it, I guess. Or you're like a fucking idiot who actually like believes in these things. This idea that this gene, like, that's not true. It's not fucking true.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, you gonna tell me that fucking, you tell me that fucking, what's his name? Eric Trump has good genes. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, just whatever. But all right.
Nah, dude, it's crazy. You know what's a funny thing? That a lot of people like to bring up like genes and racial studies and things when it comes to IQ. Mm-hmm. One, IQ is not really an effective measurement of intelligence. You can't really use that as an objective measure of like who's more intelligent. Two, based on the races, you'll find far more variety within races than between them. As in, there may be statistical differences in IQs across the races, but within the race, you have all the extremes. So you'll have people that are white that are really stupid and white that are really smart. You'll have black people that are really stupid and black people that are really smart. So the idea that there's some sort of connection there is bullshit. Lastly, every study that measures IQ between conservatives and liberals finds that liberals are more intelligent. Again, I don't believe it, but if you want to go that way, we can go that way. Are you blocking him?
No.
Yeah, keep him up.
But anywho.
Is he still going?
No, he hasn't said anything else beyond that.
I don't know. You want to talk? Because that's insane. Like, people... One, even if it turned out that a certain race was smarter than any other race, it doesn't make you fucking smart by virtue of belonging to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And secondly,
I think there's just too many variables involved. I mean, there's so many systemic things that can be tied to it.
It's like just everything borrowed from everything else. Chinese at one point were the top superpower, like of the ancient world. All of our math and science comes from Arabic languages. Fucking Egyptians were black. The Mayans and Aztecs and a lot of fucking cultures were highly advanced that had nothing to do with their fucking race, dude. I don't know. It's just like, it's just an easy way to give yourself this false sense of superiority. That's why it's so appealing to these like fucking losers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, white people invented the modern world and I happen to be white, so that makes me good even though I'm a fucking shit kicker. Like, nah, you can go fuck yourself, dude.
Yeah. All right.
I imagine that this dude is just some fucking hideous fucking chud.
Probably.
Because these ideals are not expressed by like fucking studs.
Yeah.
You know, I've never once seen like a cool guy who has these worldviews.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them has been some fucking basement dweller who fucking gets no type of play, and so he's angry at the fucking world.
100%.
But anyway,
All right.
whatever. I think that's a good place to end it.
That
though.
is a good
Fuck
place
that
to end,
guy.
though. It's about that time. We'll cut it up. So we will see you guys on the next one.